In February of 2022, Russia launched an invasion of Ukraine, categorizing it as a special military operation. If you are in Russia, don't call it a war or invasion, that comes with a prison sentence. Russia's justification of their invasion to demilitarize and YouTube doesn't like that word. Yahtzee party. De-Nazi party Ukraine were obvious lies. For one, Russia has since involuntarily annexed 4 provinces of Ukraine, 2 of which Russia previously unilaterally declared independent states. So it seems like that didn't last. For 2, Russia has been more than willing to work with their own Yahtzees. Most importantly, and this is the 3rd one, as Russia was invading Ukraine, Putin was simultaneously saying Russians and Ukrainians were, quote, one people, and that modern Ukraine was a creation of Vladimir Lenin. This is all kinds of wrong. While it is true that Ukrainians and Russians are descended from the same cultural ancestors, the Kievan Rus, to use that as the rationale for them being the same people would be like arguing Portuguese and Spanish are the same people because their languages and cultures have the same cultural ancestor. And while many of the people whose descendants would identify as Ukrainian lived under Russian rule for centuries, millions of Ukrainian speakers lived in other European empires. By the 1800s, predominantly the Austrian Empire. In fact, the rise of the Ukrainian identity on the basis of a shared language and culture took place at roughly the same time in both the Russian and Austrian empires. It was from this shared language and cultural identity that the first attempt at a modern Ukrainian nation-state took place in the fall of World War I, Russian Revolution and Russian Civil War. Or rather, attempts, as there were multiple groups trying to establish a single Ukrainian nation in the forms of the Ukrainian State, Ukrainian People's Republic, and West Ukrainian People's Republic. This doesn't even include the Ukrainian anarchist called the Makhnesovich. I probably said that wrong. This guy. Ukraine, or basically the Ukrainian Soviets. I probably said the name wrong. I'm just going to put up the symbol. We'll go from there, okay? Just basically Ukrainian Soviets, as part of the soon-to-be USSR. Continuing on. It took nearly 5 years of bloody war to resolve the Russian Civil War, and in the end, an independent Ukraine wasn't to be. The lands of an attempted Ukrainian state were absorbed by the reborn Poland, the newly created Czechoslovakia, and the renamed Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. However, within the USSR, the Soviet Socialist Republics that were established was an acknowledgement of the distinct identity of some of the non-Russian cultures and ethnic groups within the former Russian Empire. The first to be established was Ukraine itself, while the fighting was ongoing. This was what Putin is referring to when he says Ukraine was a creation of Vladimir Lenin, and that's just a theory, a Putin theory, because it's not true. The establishment of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic was because of the distinct Ukrainian identity that already existed. That isn't to say that Ukraine, or other minorities within the USSR, were always treated equally, especially under Stalin. That other mean mustache man of the mid-20th century among the numerous atrocities committed by Stalin and his government included the Holodomor, a man-made famine within Ukraine and elsewhere, with a death toll in the millions. His government continued the policies from the Russian Empire with the Russification, yes, that is a word, the Russification of Ukrainian history and discouraging the use of the Ukrainian language. Within the USSR, this wasn't unique to Ukraine, but this video is about Ukraine. My historian, Admiral Paco, can handle the rest on their channel. Right, Paco? Thanks, Paco. Anyway, during World War II, as Germany and the USSR fought each other, there were Ukrainian nationalism movements that aligned with one side or the other, and those that fought against both. At the war's conclusion, Ukraine, including lands that were taken from Poland and Czechoslovakia, was reincorporated into the Soviet Union. But the horrors didn't stop with the end of the war, because that'd be too easy. Ethnic Germans and Poles that had lived in Ukraine for centuries were forced to Germany and Poland. Ethnic Ukrainians that had lived for centuries in Poland, Belarus, and elsewhere were forced to go to Ukraine. This doesn't even mention the many other ethnic peoples forced from their homes in the years after the war, including the Czechoslovakians, the Romanians, Lithuanians, oodles and oodles more that will actually make us be here for forever. There's a lot of people on this list. All links will be in the description of this video if you feel so inclined to look at it yourself. The point here is that in these population transfers, Ukrainians were treated as a distinct people apart from Russians. Another acknowledgement of the USSR of Ukrainians as their own distinct peoples separate from them. There are a continuation of the Russification policy across the USSR in after Stalin years, including requirements to use Russian as the primary and sometimes only language of education and government, but by the late 1980s, this led to a significant number of ethnic Ukrainians only speaking Russian, not dissimilar to how Irish was largely driven out of Ireland or Welsh in Wales to be replaced by English. It's wild to think that the people who are the biggest bullies on the block can sometimes just demand that you either fall in line or get smushed. Again, we don't have time for that. We have a very clear goal here. I'm just saying. With the dissolution of the USSR in the opening years of the 1990s, modern Ukraine was a firmly established independent state for the first time, still retaining strong ties to Russia, but their economic and politics have been intertwined for so long, but also desiring to set their own course. Every effort to do so towards the West, however, has been met with hostility from Russia. There are geopolitical reasons for this, but that doesn't morally justify Russia, or more precisely Putin's, hostility nor actions. This tension first broke out into international conflict with the Orange Revolution in 2004. Yeah, not that long ago, like 20 years ago, this was a thing. The much more significant incident, however, was the Euromaidan protests that began in late 2013, culminating in the pro-Russian president Yanukovych fleeing the country in early 2014. Russia soon invaded, seizing Crimea and supporting pro-Russian separatists in Lyshanka and Donetsk. Russian troops were totally not involved in these breakaway regions. Nope, just little green men that spoke Russian and came from Russia carrying Russian arms. Totally not Russian troops in any way. You can tell because they don't have flags on them. This is important in war, because if the invading country does not actually slap their logo on stuff, they can in fact claim, that wasn't us, that was just somebody who's totally in line with all of our beliefs, doing stuff for us. It's not us, you can't prove it. But I digress. This brings us back to the beginning. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and attempt to once again force it to heal. So far, with outside help, the Ukrainian people stand firm on their own independence and freedom. May they long continue to be free. I bring this intro to Ukrainian history and current events because this video is about Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812, which takes place in Kiev in what is now Ukraine. I'm actually not even kidding. This is supposed to take place in Kiev because it's not, right? I'll tell you the story. I was talking about this with Admiral Paco, and Admiral Paco was listening to it, and Paco, because Paco likes to know things and is a historian, looked it up, and apparently Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 takes place in Moscow, Russia, not Kiev, Ukraine. Mark! Paco, we got anything for that? Yes, I know it's a rush job. Surely you've got something in your kitty noggin. Thank you, Paco. Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 takes place during the Napoleonic era, specifically during the time period leading up to Napoleon's invasion of Russia. In the years and months leading up to the invasion, tensions rose between Tsar Alexander I and Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, who were ostensibly allies since the French victory over the Fourth Coalition. One of the primary conflicts between the two was Napoleon's insistence on Russian participation. Well, really all of Europe's participation, but still. The Continental System, aka the No Trading with the UK Club, Joining the system was one of Napoleon's terms for peace in 1807, but by 1811 it had worn out its welcome, having caused havoc to the Russian economy. Alexander ultimately pulled out of the continental systems, leading Napoleon to amass a force of 600,000 to invade Russia and force them back into line. All of this is the historical set piece of which Natasha, Pierre, and the Great Comet of 1812 resides. Also, the comet mentioned in the title was actually the Great Comet of 1811, although it was still visible in the early parts of 1812. Thank you, Paco. Anyway, the Great Comet was in 1811, Dave. You know what? That's a nitpick. That's not really the point of this. Let's talk about this play because it's a wild thing to talk about. This play is like a side story to a much larger story. The original story can be found in the book War and Peace. War and Peace is dummy thick and will take you a long time to get through if you commit to reading it. The play itself is wild beyond belief because Natasha is falling in love with her brother-in-law. Pierre is trying to find the meaning of life. The War of 1812 is happening on top of all of this because I was lied to. I was over here thinking that all of this was happening in a totally different country, but it's not. The play does not take place in Ukraine, Mark! Which is a good place to start because I trusted Mark to know this since he had seen the play like a million times. Okay, he saw it like 3 times, but because I trusted Mark to tell me about this, I went 6 years thinking this play was based in Ukraine, which was not true, because I was talking to someone else about it, Paco, and they told me point blank that no, it was not based in Ukraine, it's based in Russia. So let's talk about how you can use lies to paint a picture of truth by lack of information. I did not go out looking for more information beyond what Mark told me, therefore I am Bobo the Fool, and I can admit this. That being said, Natasha does this up in the play because she uses a lie to get what she wants, and when that doesn't work out, she tries to end herself, which is a whole song in the play, just an FYI. Pierre, who is also married, not to Natasha, by the way, they're just the main characters, totally different relationships, is using this trying to find himself thing as a way to try and lie to himself about everything. So really quick side note, Natasha does not know that her affair partner is married and is cheating on his wife, so they reach out to get Pierre to go help them find the affair partner to yell at him. So this whole play is about how you can lie to each other. So we use lies to try and make ourselves feel better, appear to be doing well, to wage wars, and justify our actions. Humans lie. Big shock. This is my shocked face. But this is what this whole play is about, that this stupid war in Ukraine is about. About the war in Ukraine, in Congo, in Palestine, how Germany lied to its people in World War II, how America lied to its people about so many things. Like, we do not have time for that. Like, I don't want to get into it here because there's so much, but humans lie. We are bad liars on top of that, but we do, and we often agree with the lies, but we don't have time to analyze what that says about us or the things we need to work through. I am not a therapist. I think everybody should do more personal introspection work, but that's a personal opinion. We really don't have time for why we lie. It's not important. However, the lies we tell ourselves are worse than the lies we tell other people. The lies you tell other people fall apart really quickly and can be uncovered by finding the truth. But a lie you tell yourself, a lie you make into a cornerstone of your personality, is a dangerous lie, because to remove that lie from yourself would mean you might be left scrambling to find anything to try and correct about yourself to make the lie more passable, but not because you want to improve as a person. It's because you want to fill the hole that the cornerstone that has been removed has left. But that's just my 2 cents. Is there anything else I want to add? No. Okay, bye. Love yous.